Ntukusima abw'amagara ga Kanyeihamba uwo yesire, tukusimira emirimo ye, tukusimira ukubaho kwe, tukusimira amani ge, tukusimira ubwenge bwe, tukusimira ibiconco biwamuhire byakoze yesize okurugiriro mwiru wawe David okuyaba nagamba obeire nabo agenzire nawe abeire mu bahabuzi we amuhweriro miringo mingi nko kuyaba nabigamba. Thank you, dear Lord, for what he has been, for the lives he has touched, for the work well done in our government, in our church. Twimukiza omuguru sogu omurgeje imyaka ye ayi mukama ekiyagamba nguhu aho Kanyeihamba tali mukama uriho abo kubiwe tofa ogumahe biro byona uri obushoborozi bwona mani ga Isiraeli mbwenu tukwereza omuguru sogu David, ntwereza family, twereza omuchara wa Kanyeihamba, ntwereza abana be, twereza abejukuru ayi mukama abakwikiriza ati bafa bagumahe ibiro byona. We pray that, dear Lord, you will always be there for them. Bayimusyamisho gabo ni baronda John Wilson babe niwo bagayikizaho obo buhungiro bwabo ayi mukama oba masiko gabo obombeke ayi Kristo warwanga bahinduka bo mutano obahereza ubutunji bwawe obatunge obahumurize obagumye bemerera hariwe kando bebembero butosha baza kwimusyamisho gabo ni baronda John Wilson babe niwo bagayikizaho abo kubatofa mukama nitubashabira umugisha gwawe, nitushabira umugisha oruganda rwabo, nitushabira umugisha emirimo yabo, nitushabira umugisha ebibali kukora ogume nabo mukama abwo burungi bwawe umugisha gwa ruhango bushoborozi bwona tateyitwe omwana no moyo rukwera gubene imwe gubalinde gutabarugaho okuruga hati no kusebiro byona.
Beloved,
may the Lord bless you.
It's never too late to
may you
get
continue to
yourself
support
to the Lord.
you. May the Lord bless you.
As you have
may you continue
seen
to support you. May the
happen
Lord bless
right
you.
away.
May the Lord bless you. May always show favor to you and give you comfort. In the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you very much, my Lord Bishop. As we prepare to have the next speaker, also allow me recognize the presence of the Speaker of the Kampala Capital City Authority Council, Madam Zahara Yuri Kamala, who is here with us. Mrs. Rose Katera, as you make your way here, may I request the technical team to play a very short audio from a neighbor who's requested that is played as a tribute to the late Kanyeihamba. And that's none other than Audrey Ruawogo, whose audio has come through technologically.
Friends, the late Professor George Kanyeihamba. Professor George Kanyeihamba comes from a stock of honest men and women whose asset is their forthrightness in dealing with public issues, their sense of candor in managing relationships, and their brilliance in debate about what a country or an institution needs. They may be disagreeable, but they do their work and they speak with conviction. Sadly, many are leaving us today because they were born when Uganda was still a colony. And as you can see, Professor Kanyeihamba was born at the start of the Second World War. These people took early education when few people went to school and they excelled. They served the early and stable governments of Uganda in the 1970s and 1980s, and they brought the movement government into the knowledge and acceptability by both domestic and international audiences. At the time, very few knew about NRM and its leaders, and even a substantial global opinion used to call NRM leaders communists. This cohort of our leaders, represented by Kanyeihamba, are now dying, and they are buried in their country of birth, not in exile, and this is something to thank God for as a country. Professor Kanyeihamba was very sincere when he disagreed with you, and he told you what he felt and thought about you. It was you to convince him otherwise by the force of both your character and ideas. Many people will instead speak ill about you in the dark, and they smile when they meet you. He was different. I remember when he was head of the Legal and Drafting Committee in the Constituent Assembly, he disagreed vehemently with my evening summary reports of the sessions to the media. He came to my editor to protest, asking my editor to either substitute me with another person or to restrain my writing, which he, Professor Kanyeihamba, thought was more opinionated than actual. I listened to Professor Kanyeihamba when I was told he had held strong opinions about my work, and out of this we became good friends. Years later, when we settled in the same neighborhood in Obuziga, he called me about a young man who had done a shoddy job for me and who had run away from work that I had given him. He insisted, Professor Kanyeihamba insisted, I must pay the young man even if his work wasn't pleasing. I listened again and did what Professor Kanyeihamba asked me to do. That tells you he worked with people of lower means as well as high status, freely, equally, and joyfully. I suppose this is also why in 1988, when I was a young man in high school, he came to our small village of Byazo in Kenshunga of Chiruhura as minister of government to arbitrate in a family conflict of my late grandparents. He would have sent a junior officer, but he stepped forward himself. I will miss this spirit of public service, which exhibits to us a sense of humility and availability to the common person. Even when church began in our home next to his house in Obuziga, he encouraged and wrote to my wife to keep preaching the word of God, and he even came to church in our home. Professor Kanyeihamba also loved nature and culture in spite of his busy schedule of writing, of teaching, of politics and public service. He once told me that the reason he loved and stayed in Wales in exile was the rolling hills in the middle of that part of the United Kingdom. For that part of the UK reminded him of Kabale Hills where he grew up. Indeed, when I first took a train from Paddington in London to Cardiff in the spring of 1996 as a student, I saw with my eyes these beautifully shaped rolling hills with sheep and cattle grazing in the grassland. I later visited the Brecon Beacons, those rounded, high, rolling terrain in South Wales, which confirmed fully why Mzee Kanyeihamba had fallen in love with his country and its people. He was the only person who came to my university and took me out for a meal. I will miss him and his sense of generosity. You never forget these moments later in life. Culturally, he was also well rooted in his people and his soil. I found out recently that he came from the sub-clan of the Abagabira, who have the same mother as Abazigaba, Abasakuru, and Abanyangabo. Now, for any young people who might not know our country's history, these clans I mentioned are connected to the greater Ankore, Rujumbura, Mpororo, Bunyoro, Toro, and even in parts of Buganda. These clans specifically produced John Bukangaga. John Bukangaga was Omsakuru from Buchimbiri. Buchimbiri is now, I think, in Kisoro. Bukangaga was the leader, or what the Banyachigezi called Urtachirwa of Chigezi from 1963. I have also not checked, but I suspect that Paulo or Petero Ngorogoza of the Bainika clan, his praise name was Rugusha Rwanyinababiri, who led Uganda to independence negotiations in the UK in 1961. This Ngorogoza was also a native chief administrator of Chigezi. He might also belong to the same roots as Kanyeihamba. Ngorogoza worked very closely with Ankore leaders like Mzee Mungonya to settle Mechiga in Mwizi area of Rwampara from 1947. This same grouping, I think, also produces our current Dr. Muranga, the scientist and husband to my sister in the Lord, Dr. Florence Muranga, of the Toke product. Toke is now doing very well in Uganda, parts of DRC, and now in the US. Now do you young people see how connected through Kanyeihamba and his roots we are as a people? Those of you who want to separate us with tribal and religious talk of yesterday, you will fail. You should be careful, because all our 65 nations, the ones you like to call tribes, I call them nations of Uganda, we are now more interconnected today, and mentorship award. To honor this old man in front of hundreds of youth leaders, leaders of universities, leaders at a national level, and elders, all at a national level, gave me great joy. And I'm honored that we were a small part of Kanyeihamba's life in this respect. Now, to you young people listening to me, there is no loss in honoring the elders. A Stanford University experiment, Stanford in the US, they did an experiment some time back on regenerative medicine. That experiment showed that if you pair an old organism with a young one, and you connect their circulatory systems, their breathing, their blood flow systems, the old organism regains muscles, it regains bone strength, it even gains better breathing, while the young one, although it ages, it's not at a terrible rate. It tells you that both organisms gain some time in their lives by working together. In social terms, it means we learn better when we pair ourselves with the older groups, so we can see what they went through, how they made decisions to build a country, while at the same time we re-energize them, those older people, with better, fresher, newer knowledge that they may not have. That is how I work, and that is what we call mentorship, to sustain a country's growing institutions and push out bad elements who want to reverse our gains in the economy and broadly in our society. Therefore, we need more Kanyeihambas in the public service, in parliament, in institutions, to keep reminding us to stay the course and not to be diverted, and to tell us without fear or favor.
Masisi can pick this message from a family that has worked with Kanyeihamba for a long time. I don't know whether it is preempt her speech, but legend has it that 3 distinguished young men pursuing a career in law left Uganda. A one Kanyeihamba, a one Katera, and a one Mulenga. All of them now deceased, but their legacy lives on in their children. So much so that that very tall, gigantic man accompanying his mother, Justinian Katera, also risks having a signpost, perhaps longer than that of Professor Kanyeihamba's house, because so far he has acquired almost all academic credentials that Professor Kanyeihamba had, except, of course, being a Supreme Court judge, a senior counsel, and a double PhD in law. Mrs. Katera.
Thank you, General. Ask you to please. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kasiate. My name's Rose Katera, mother to Catherine, a wife to Joel Kanyeihamba. I'll ask my son to kindly, Justinian Katera, to kindly read my message. I want it to be brief. And all, these are my relatives. This is Justinian. Read my message.
Can we? Okay. Yes, that's fine. This is the speech of our mother, Mrs. Rose Katera. And in the interest of time, I think I'll try to summarize it. But it goes like this. The bereaved family of the late George Kanyeihamba, the clergy, Your Excellencies, the Chief Justice, Honorable Ministers, Right Honorable Prime Ministers Emeritus, friends, relatives, and fellow mourners. My name is Rose Katera, the mother-in-law of Joel Kanyeihamba. I first met George in the 1970s through my late husband, Jonathan Katera. They had a close friend and brother, the late Justice Joseph Mulenga. The three of them, George, Joseph, and Jonathan, were very close, and they were each other's best men at their weddings. They met in school in Kigezi when they were young, studied together, and went ahead to win scholarships to the UK to study law. They graduated together and studied further to become barristers. Barristers are advocates in the United Kingdom. Jonathan Katera went on to Harvard and then returned. Jonathan Katera passed on earlier than George Kanyeihamba and Joseph Mulenga. But the two of them, that is George Kanyeihamba and Joseph Mulenga, in addition to General Henry Tumukunde, became guardians and helped me raise my family. I am thankful to them. My daughter Catherine went to study for her master's at Cardiff in the UK, where she met Joel. At her graduation, George and Sue were there for us and entertained us to a very nice dinner. Joel and Catherine later got married and have given me two grandchildren, Ruben Nkunda and Nia Tusime. I thank God for the gift of these grandchildren. It is an amazing coincidence that our daughter got married into the family of George Kanyeihamba. George persevered through his illness in his later years. Many times he was so ill but recovered. If George was anything, he was a fighter. He fought for his life. But the last few weeks were particularly difficult because his illness had spread. He had to be amputated. We are grateful that God gave George 85 years. We are also grateful for the words of comfort and support rendered by His Excellency the President. He supported George in Nakasero Hospital, called to check on him, and then came to the house. And he has continued to support the family of George Kanyeihamba. I want to especially thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister Emeritus, Honorable Rugunda. Honorable Rugunda has been a steadfast, loyal, and dependable friend to the late Kanyeihamba. Even as a Prime Minister, Honorable Rugunda would answer 10 calls a day to deal with every issue, minor and major, affecting George Kanyeihamba. May God bless you, Right Honorable Rugunda, for your devotion to George Kanyeihamba. I also want to thank the Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi for your steadfast support to the family of the late George Kanyeihamba. And I want to thank Dr. Ben Mbonye for looking after George like a brother. Finally, I appreciate and I want to thank Betty, his adopted daughter, Dennis, his nephew, and Asimwe for looking after George to the very end. I want to thank my in-laws, Sue, Sarah, Ruth, And I want to thank Joel in particular for loving and looking after my daughter and grandchildren. May God bless you abundantly. We will support you since we are here in Uganda in all matters related to the estate. Finally, I'll quote from Hebrews chapter 10, verse 36. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Abagabira mwebale kuzare manzi. We are speaking it in Ruhororo, but may the soul of George Kanyeihamba rest in eternal peace. This is a message from our mother. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the family of the late Jonathan Katera. We appreciate your very kind remarks. Justinian, we also take note of your gross inability to translate a very well-written English statement into Runyankore Ruchiga. You and Mr. Matsuko will certainly have to attend the lessons I attended for you to be as eloquent in our mother language. That said, allow me break a bit of protocol and assign me myself a duty to welcome the Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Honorable Dr. Chris Waryomunsi. Thanks so much for gracing us with your presence. Very quickly, as we proceed with the speeches, there's a very fond friend of Professor Kanyeihamba, himself a professor, going by the names of Professor Mondo Kagonyera, who has been requested to say a word or two, and trusting his deep appreciation of his local language, his high sense of humor, but his great summary in speaking less but conveying a lot. We believe that his speech will be within a minute. So Professor Kagonyera, you're most welcome. And as he concludes his speech, we'll be inviting another distinguished gentleman by the names of Honorable Matthew Chikere to also come and make his remarks.
I have an impossible task. This man advised me that I have only 1 minute in which to make a speech on a great man called Kanyeihamba. And I wasn't that good at press at school, by the way. It's going to be a problem. All protocol observed. My duty is 2 or 3-fold. One is to affirm that all the allegations that have been made about Professor Kanyeihamba are true. Professor Kanyeihamba was a uniquely gifted man. It is true. Professor Kanyeihamba was born in one of the most disadvantaged parts of our region. Those who know Kigezi, a place called Chinaba. Chris Waryomunsi knows where Chinaba is, one of the most disadvantaged. So that Professor Kanyeihamba could have the chance to be what he is, indeed was a great gift from nobody but the Almighty God. Professor Kanyeihamba was a distinguished Ugandan. From the time he went to school, at a church school in a place called Hamurwa, he once whispered to me that if anybody beat him in the class, he would get angry. So he made sure he beat everybody in every subject throughout his school days. Gift from God. I can claim that I am one of those who have known Professor Kanyeihamba longest. Because when I knew that I was a human being, I was actually living in the same village as Professor Kanyeihamba. We also met at Kigezi High School in 1953. And we have lived together on and off ever since, and we have had the pleasure to work together. Professor Kanyeihamba is a distinguished Ugandan. He went to school, Kigezi High School, he was the best in his class. And I think when he went to Muiri, Busoga College Muiri, which was one of the best schools in this country at that time, he was the best in his class. He went abroad, and I'm sure he distinguished himself and became a lawyer. Professor Kanyeihamba distinguished himself as an academician. He distinguished himself as a politician, and he distinguished himself as a judge. Who can do better than that? I think he deserves that club. There are many people, my Lord Chief Justice, who are very brilliant in a class, but many times they put their brilliance to the disadvantage of the people among whom they live. That was not Professor Kanyeihamba. For all the time I lived and knew him, Professor Kanyeihamba did the best to his ability to serve the people among whom he lived. And that's why I can safely say that when I had the chance to serve with him in President Museveni's cabinet, Professor Kanyeihamba distinguished himself, he acquitted himself as a minister in President Museveni's government, having held so many positions. And my Lord Chief Justice, you'll agree with me that even on the bench as a Supreme Court judge, Professor Kanyeihamba distinguished himself. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that's why I came here to affirm the allegations that have been made about Professor Kanyeihamba, that he was a great man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mondo Kagonyera, for those very kind words, and indeed for distinguishing yourself as a professor by being succinct with regard to your remarks. The Honorable, the Chief Justice, Honorable Ministers present and distinguished mourners, you will now allow me to invite the Honorable Matthew Chikeire, a long-time friend and confidant of Justice Kanyeihamba, to come and share with us his eulogies. As he makes his way, everyone speaks of Kanyeihamba as a very candid person. All I can tell you is that you did not want to be the spokesperson of KCCA at a time when KCCA attempted to remove the signpost to his house because of not following procedures which he had already followed. The story of what happened to that spokesperson is known to me very well. I will share it with you on another day.
My lords, the bishops, my lord the Chief Justice, the family of the late George Kanyeihamba, and all the other dignitaries who have been recognized, and I don't intend to go through them. I will also say, like Mondo Kagonyera has said, protocol observed. Now, of all the people here and those who will speak after me, I want to say from the outset that I am most definitely the longest and oldest associate of the late George Kanyeihamba. Both of us have exceeded the age of 80. Him, I think, at 86 or nearly 86, and me at 87. So that over the years, both of us have lived on this earth. We have known each other for more than 75 years. I knew him when he was perhaps 14 and I was 15 at a place called Nyaruhanga in the district of Rubanda, where he hailed from himself and where my late father, Ernest Nyawagabo, Reverend Ernest Nyawagabo Canon, served as a pastor at that place of Nyaruhanga. The other associate who has passed on that we lived and interacted with was Professor Jason Kwesiga, whom we also sent off a couple of months ago. After our interaction in Nyaruhanga, that was during the times of colonialism. It was just a couple of years after the Second World War, and we lived in a period of excitement, including the East African revival, of which we called ourselves the Sons of the Revival. So we had a lot of things to talk about. But from there, both him and I went to Kigezi High School, and subsequently he went on to Busoga College, Mwiri, and on to UK, where he performed he got a string of achievements, both in the academic sphere, as a scholar, and also as a teacher in some of the most prestigious universities in the UK before coming back to Uganda and Makerere to continue his academic work in law and several other spheres. George and I then interacted later after the launch of the Bush War. I was the chairman of the Global External Committee, and George Kanyeihamba was a member of our London branch, or our UK branch, which was very active. But because George, as you know, is not a wonderful team player, so although he was a member of the London branch, he was never satisfied to operate through the branch. So he found it convenient whenever he had questions to ask or messages to convey to President Museveni, he found it necessary for him to fly to Nairobi, where we had our headquarters, to interact with me and tell me what his views were, and also to ask me to communicate those views to President Museveni, at that time Museveni, who was the leader of the Bush War, which was being prosecuted. Now, when we die, as we say these days, when we pass on, each one of us knows and remembers George Kanyeihamba individually because of the interaction they have had with him. It's only on an occasion like this, and the period we've had over the last 1 week and more, that we have of comments, of tributes being made about Kanyeihamba. And many of them, we are hearing them for the first time. At the end of which, mercifully, what has transpired over the last week from all the tributes and the things which I've said about him have shown that George Kanyeihamba is greater than we thought he was when we knew him in life, which is a big, big achievement. So that as we bury and say goodbye to George Kanyeihamba, we know that we have sent off somebody who is greater in death than he was when he was still living on this earth. I think that in his last days, George knew that he had accomplished what he was born to do and what he was supposed to do, and that the Almighty God, and from what we have heard, was happy that he had been able to achieve so much for himself, for his family, and for the country. Now, he has gone. And in his last years, George Kanyeihamba, has tended to drift from his traditional background of law, of politics, as we knew him, to perhaps something I can describe as spiritual. About 1 year ago, we had the celebration of Kanyeihamba's celebration of his marriage with Susan here. And she came with her daughter from London to come and attend. What did you say? 60 years. 60 years in marriage. Now, Kanyeihamba, although he was frail and weak, in his speech, he made something that was unusual and seems to surprise everybody who was there. He talked about monkeys. He said that in the neighborhood and in the trees around, there were several monkeys which lived there and from time to time came down from the trees to look for something to eat. But they had never come to his compound, not even once, as far as he could remember. But surprisingly, that day, when we were there to celebrate with him the anniversary of his wedding, these monkeys came into his compound and started playing. And George was saying this one without even smiling, with a straight face and making a serious statement, saying that he was really surprised that these monkeys had finally come into his compound to play. And he said that in his view, these monkeys had also come to celebrate the anniversary of his wedding. You remember? Yes. Now, we thought, and many people thought this was humor or he was making a joke. But George was not making a joke. He was not laughing. He was not smiling. He was taking the presence of these monkeys in his compound extremely seriously as something that signifying something that was very unusual and which he took as a very serious event. Eventually, when I went home and I wrote this thing in my diary, I thought that when we see things happening, some of us interpret them differently. I think that the presence of these monkeys in his compound and the game they were playing and his association of those monkeys with the event meant something that we could not explain. Only George knew what he thought about. Now, finally, because I don't want to make a long speech, George invited me to come to his home and have a chat. And on that day, he was going for his medical procedure in the hospital, which usually took place at night. And he went there about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was informed that I should go at his home at about 10 or 11. As I was on the way going, I got a telephone from Dennis here that George had not arrived, that I should go back home and come again. But on my way out, I got a telephone call that he had arrived. And I went back. George was frail and so on, but he was happy to see me. And one of the things he told me when we met and talked was that, because I told him that we were praying for him, he told me that nkabonekerwa mu Rukiga nanye nkabonekerwa nkashururwa yakigamba mu Rukiga emirundi nk'eshatu kandi yagaruka ya closing amesho. Now, I was very, very happy yesterday to hear that Miriam Matembe, who was also a very close associate with George, testified that, in fact, George became a saved person or a born-again Christian, which showed to me that what he had told me, that Nkabonekerwa, when I went to see him, was in fact the truth, that he had finally met his Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, I am happy, and I want to believe that George has also gone to heaven in glory, and wish him a glorious and eternal stay in heaven, where I think he is now. I thank you very much.
Webale munonga omugurusi Honorable Matthew Chikeire, webale nebigambo byawe birungi, abantu bitabari nyamasizi ntumamu rumuntu reba program eji konka kanti nguza kubavunurira abwe ntambara yobwire nani nshaba ngu mwikirize tugumezemu na speeches ezaha abaraza kubavunurira ndajabaza kubavunurira okwe akwa naje ngo hatinanye ntandike kuvunurira hanuya obwire buza kuba buragenda so na nebyo nandashaba ngumba shome obutumwa buke obwaruga mu bitongole nasha abantu abare tubutumwa bwo kuyinamira omugenzi George Wilson Kanyeihamba. We have a message from Property Services. We have a condolence message from the Conservative Party, and I think earlier I saw the party, the eternal party president of the Conservative Party. We have a message from the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative. And yes, we have a condolence message from the late Kanyeihamba's alma mater, which is Kigezi High School. We will be reading out other condolence messages as they arrive at the Secretariat as we proceed with our event. In a special way, the family wishes to recognize Mr. Fred Wamwesije, the Executive Director at the Civil Aviation Authority, for the incredible work you did, thank you, in ensuring VIP clearance of the arriving members of the family, ensuring their transportation inland, and we believe that you're going to continue with that assistance until they board the outward bus and Airbus out of Uganda. But also, for the frequent times Joel will be coming, I want to believe that you will also handle that. Thank you. That said, ladies and gentlemen, it is at this juncture that now I hand back to the government protocol to now take us through, reminding them that try as much as possible to remind the next speakers to infuse Ruchiga, and that includes and is not limited to the Honorable the Chief Justice. Thank you very much.
Our representative of the government has announced your arrival. I shall request that we all stand up and we have the national anthems before we proceed to those high-level eulogies. DJ? Thank you very much. We may take our seats. our guest of honor from representing government, my Lord the Chief Justice, all protocol observed, we want to welcome you at this moment. We had initial program items proceed, and I will request at this moment, before we go into the next segment, to request that my Lord Chief Justice, you proceed and first lay your wreath. My Lord Chief Justice. Thank you, my Lord Chief Justice. And also, I will request a representative of government, Honorable Chris Bariomonsi, representing Government Minister of Information and Communication Technology, to come and lay his wreath on behalf of government. Thank you very much. We have online audience who are participating with us all the way in the village, and we want to recognize their presence online with us. At this moment, I will proceed to make further recognitions. I want to recognize the presence of our members of parliament, not earlier recognized. We have Honorable Alan Sewanyana from Machindie East. You are most welcome. We also have Honorable Nyeko Derrick, Machindie West. Thank you for coming. We want to recognize the presence of Honorable Malende Shamim, a woman member of parliament for Kampala. We want to recognize the Honorable Augustine Rosindana, former Inspector General of Government. You're most welcome. Allow me also to recognize the presence of Omulangira Prince Joseph Ndaula from the royal family of Uganda, and also Ambassador to Namibia. Allow me recognize the presence of registrars and magistrates present, doing a lot of ushering. You are most welcome. We have Madam Apofia Tumwine, Commissioner Human Resource, representing the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to Judiciary. You're most welcome. I saw my brother, Senior Counsel Francis Jimara, former President of the Uganda Law Society, Thank you for coming. I've also seen Dr. Sylvia Namubiru, the ED LabsNet. Thank you for coming. There are several members of the bar seated probably in diverse places. We want to recognize your presence. Allow me also recognize the presence of Mr. Karuhanga Hannington, Chairman Board of Directors of Airtel. Please, you are most welcome. Also, allow me to recognize the presence of the family of the late Honorable Justice Odell. May his soul rest in eternal peace. His family was we were great friends with the late Professor Kanyeihamba. We also have Honorable Grace Mutebile, President of ICOB. You are most welcome. We also have Mr. Paul Kato, Councillor at the KCCA. Allow me equally to recognize the arrival of Reverend Father Pius Male Sentumbwe, Chancellor Kampala Archdiocese, who is here representing His Grace Paul Semogoreri, Bishop of Kampala Catholic Archdiocese. More recognitions, we shall still have them, and in the interest of time, allow me invite the Right Honorable Ruhakana Rugunda to come and make his eulogies. You're most welcome.
The church leadership and other religious leaders, the Kanyeihamba family, the representative of the President, the Chief Justice of Uganda, my comrade Amama Mbabazi, Prime Minister Emeritus, distinguished mourners. Abanyamasizi kanyesiga ngumuri neitwe ebituragamba murabihurira kurungi kuraba mu gihe cy'icoma nangwe cyome kirereka ngo ibintu muri Uganda biri kugenda mu misho abanyamasizi n'aba Kampala baragamba hamwe atine enshongeriho so echo kangire ngo naco twakimara ndagira ngo iraka ryanyu turara twatunga kanya tulihurireho. Ne bingi byagambirwa ari Kanyeihamba ndaza kumugambaho ahabuntu bubiri bwonka. A lot has been said about Justice Kanyeihamba, and I will just make a couple of points. I should actually highlight, and Ngumondo Kagonyera had made this point. Abantu bengi bafire, many people have passed on, but in the recent times, I do not remember anyone who has been as extensively covered by the media as Professor Kanyeihamba has been covered. This illustrates his standing in our society, his contribution, and indeed, he has set many examples in many different fields: academia, law, politics, that we need to learn from and we need to emulate. I want to comment about his legacy. His legacy is full of inspiring lessons, but I will just mention one. Kanyeihamba was a close friend of Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda. But Kanyeihamba was also a close friend of the opposition leaders in this country. Kanyeihamba used this relationship of intimacy with the government and intimacy with the opposition to endeavor to open channels of communication that would ensure peace, stability, and development in our country. When we were at All Saints Church, Sarah in her speech said her father was dedicated to making Uganda the best country in the world. We therefore have a responsibility as friends, as family, as Ugandans, as political leaders, to pursue the goal that Kanyeihamba was pursuing of making Uganda the greatest country in the world. He has made his contribution, but there is still work to be done. And that work is to be done by you and me. So I want to salute Kanyeihamba for being an exceptional Ugandan in many ways, to be comfortably intimate with the president and government members, while you are at the same time very comfortable with many opposition leaders and easily communicating with each other. All this focused on making Uganda a better country for all of us. In my view, this is one of the greatest aspects of his legacy that we as Ugandans should push forward and will continue to inspire us. Kanyeihamba physically is not going to be with us, but unlike many people, he heavily documented his ideas, his advice, his knowledge. And in his book, The Last Word, My Last Word, he says he's writing his 36th book. I think really he has done great work. And again, he sets an example, especially for the younger generation, to emulate his example, his lessons, his works, and to ensure that his legacy continues. I'm happy now to thank a number of people for great contribution made in the life of Kanyeihamba. I want first and foremost to thank his wife and the children for being loyal and for supporting Kanyeihamba for more than 60 years. We salute you because in spite of the distance that some of you are staying, this has not weakened the relationship, the love that you have had for Kanyeihamba or that Kanyeihamba has had for you. Within the family, I want to salute Betty Nabitosi, who has lived with Kanyeihamba for 10 years, looked after him and cared for him. Betty, are you somewhere near? Move a little in front and wave to the people. That's the great girl that has looked after Kanyeihamba for the last 10 years. We deeply appreciate your personal contribution to Kanyeihamba's life and well-being. Let me also salute President Yoweri Museveni for the support that has given to Kanyeihamba. A few days ago, he called on the widow and the family, and as I speak, the entire hospital bill, as he offered, he has already cleared it. And it was not a small bill, as you can imagine. But there are many other people who have assisted. Let me take this opportunity to thank His Highness, the Kabaka of Buganda, for the friendship and support that he has given to our comrade Kanyeihamba. And I'm very happy that today with us we have Joseph Ndaula, Prince, who is here really in his personal capacity, but also to demonstrate the closeness that our brother Kanyeihamba had with the king and the royal family. And indeed, the royal family has been strong in supporting him. His Highness has sent a message of condolences and given permission to say, George, you can rest at your home. There were issues. George did say that he wanted to rest permanently at his home. But it required a few issues to be sorted out. And I'm glad that the Kabaka and the central government and the city council were able to smoothly get this sorted out. So thank you very much once again. I thank Nakasero Hospital. They have done wonderful work over the years, and they have given quality care to our departed brother. Dr. Mbonye and his staff have been exemplary in looking after our departed friend. I want to thank the team that has been coordinating this exercise. The team has done great work. It included quite a number of people, but I'll not go into the details, but we appreciate the great work that you did to prepare for this befitting send-off for our comrade. It's also fair that I should salute the President and the state for making sure that George received an official burial. The state has played its role, and the officials who have been preparing for this function have done their work very well. I thank you all. Finally, Kanyeihamba has carried out his tasks and carried them out very well. The Almighty God, as we have heard from a number of witnesses, I'm sure, has already received him in his arms. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those eulogies. Allow me at this very juncture to invite the Right Honorable Amama Mbabas, Prime Minister Emeritus, also to make his eulogies. Thank you.
I wish to stand by the protocol already given out and simply say, friends, family of the late Justice Kanyeihamba, fellow mourners, kamba nze n'abanyamasizi ndenda kubahisikyaho okushasha kwaitu okuferwa emanzi yanyu, emanzi yaitu twena abakiga, emanzi y'abanya-Uganda, n'emanzi ey'abarairagura abo munsi yona. Kanyeihamba asigire izina ndaza kubigambaho mu rujungu eritaryebwa habwokuba nk'oku muhurire ebibenji bagambire Kanyeihamba ariho mbeire ndagambira ngo izina rye riraza kuba nk'erya Ruyoka, murijuka Ruyoka rwa Maganya wankaye taryebwa akafuka kare konka habwe bikorwa bye tutamwijuka. Nabwo ekyo Kanyeihamba ahereza umurimo gwe, itwe ekyasigara no kumusima ebyakozire kandi no kubikuratira. Many people have spoken before me today and the many days we've been talking about the late George Wilson Kanyeihamba. And many points, many important points, have already been made by previous speakers. Allow me, therefore, to offer some reflections with the nuance of someone who had the privilege of being a close colleague and friend. Obviously, I am, like all of you are, here with heavy hearts, but I believe with gratitude as well, very profound gratitude, to honor and lay to rest one of the finest sons of this land, Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. For me, this is a deeply personal moment. George was not only a towering jurist and statesman, he was also my friend. He was my colleague and my fellow traveler in the long and difficult journey to build a just and democratic Uganda. I first knew of him by reputation, a brilliant academic, a passionate advocate for justice, and an uncompromising defender of human rights. When I entered law school at Makerere, he had already blazed a trail as a respected law lecturer. In time, I came to know him more closely, and we worked together in government and in the broader struggle for national renewal. Through exile and return, in times of dictatorship and of transition, George stood firm. He opposed the tyranny of Idi Amin. He resisted injustice in its many guises, and he gave full support to the cause that culminated in the liberation of Uganda in 1986. He was never afraid to speak, as you have heard everyone say. He was never afraid to speak truth to power. Because he believed that the law, to be worthy of the name, must be rooted in justice. And justice must be rooted in courage. In public service, George distinguished himself, of course, as we've heard many people say, as Attorney General, as a government minister, and later as a Justice of the Supreme Court. His work on the bench was informed not just by legal precision, but by deep moral conviction. His judgments were clear, independent, and principled, even when they provoked controversy, even when they stood alone. Everyone who spoke even today was a prolific writer, authoring many important books. He used well-constructed and lucid prose to articulate complex legal and constitutional concepts clearly, ensuring that his ideas could be understood by everyone. His contribution to Uganda's constitutional making were substantial. Although actively engaged throughout the entire process of constitutional promulgation, his enduring contributions were most clearly seen in his leadership as the chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee of the Constituent Assembly. I happened to be the then chairman of the caucus of the movement in the Constituent Assembly. And all these things that we determined in the plenary session had to be cleared by the caucus, because we took positions in caucus meetings which we formally presented in the plenary session. And when it came to the chapters, especially that George had handled, I'm happy to inform you that we had least problem, we had least debate, because they were clear, they had been done by expertise. So in the Constitutional Assembly, his intellectual rigor and clarity helped craft a constitution that still embodies our national aspirations. And in the few years he was in the judiciary, his judicial style reflected moral clarity and boldness, particularly in his defense of democratic principles and the rule of law. He rejected legal formalism when it conflicted with the Constitution of Uganda, or the spirit of our Constitution. He believed in using the law to promote justice rather than mere upholding technicalities. In fact, the provision in Article 126, Sub-Article 2, paragraph F, which says that in adjudicating cases, the courts shall administer substantive justice without due regard to technicalities, was George Kanyeihamba's brainchild. He never tired of defending that Constitution and the values it enshrined: liberty, equality, and the rule of law. In many ways, that was his lifelong mission. George also had a rich personal side He was frank, witty, and intellectually fearless. His humor was often sharp, but never cruel. He challenged us all not to win arguments, but think harder, to act better, and to remain faithful to principle. To his wife, Sue, the children, Sarah, Joel, Ruth, and Betty, the grandchildren, Ruben Kunda and Nia Musime, siblings, and all his family, I extend my heartfelt condolences. You have lost a loving patriarch. Uganda has lost a patriot. The judiciary has lost a champion of its independence. And I have lost a dear friend. But though we grieve, let us also be thankful for a life so fully lived, for a legacy so deeply etched into our nation's legal and moral fabric. May we honor his memory, not only with words, but with deeds that uphold the values he cherished. Death can never take a good man away, for in the hearts of the people he inspired, the legacy remains and is continuous throughout generations. So, as I conclude, I hope you'll allow me, the timekeeper here, to lead you in the last stanza of a hymn that speaks powerfully to the comfort of our faith and the hope we hold even in grief. And the hymn says, "And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall be sight." Do you know it? Anyone who knows it, please join me. And Lord, haste the day when faith shall be beside. The clouds shall build back as a scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend, even though nations fall. It is well, with my soul, with my soul. It is well, it is well. Fare thee well, my elder brother and friend. Rest in peace.
We want to thank you so much for those eulogies. Our Chief Mourner, allow me once again to recognize Mrs. Ndaula, the wife to Omulangira Joseph Ndaula. Thank you for coming to this send-off. We have so many wreaths We would have loved everyone to place a wreath, but in the interest of time, allow me to recognize these wreaths as the family prepares to come. We have a wreath from Nyamasizi family. We have a wreath from Kabale family, Bunyoro family. We have a wreath from Mwiri Old Boys Association, from Kabale University, Lukanshonga's family, Kivenjere family, Uganda Golf Club, Chigezi High School old students, Mbabazi and family, Joseph Mutebiri and family, from Joy Bahinguza and family. We have a wreath from Tivenderana and family, from Professor Kakihai family, from Katera and family, from Kanoni Bikangaga and family, from the Lion Guards. We have from Chigezi High School, old students. We also have a wreath from Legal Aid Service Providers Network. We have a wreath from Nakasero Hospital, staff and management. We have a wreath from the Conservative Party, a wreath from Johan, Justice Francis M. Sekandi. We also have a wreath from Kembabazi, also from Directors of Property Services Limited, from Dr. Kaijage and family, from Mariam Wamala and family, from Omuluka Gwebuziga. Thank you very much. We have a wreath from the family of Justice Arthur Okello. Thank you. We also have a wreath from Professor Bazirake and family, from the KCCA Speaker, Madam Zahara, from Honorable David Louis Lubongoya. We also have a wreath from Obwakabaka wa Buganda and a wreath from the Leader of Opposition. And several others, perhaps, which have not yet been captured, but we want to thank you so much. The family is really appreciative of those many wreaths. Let me take the honor again to invite the family children to come and make their eulogies. Thank you. And we shall request IT to prepare that audio from one of the children. You will play it first, and then we proceed.
I never normally struggled to express my feelings. I inherited from my father an inherent ability to know what to say and how to communicate that to others. But since his passing, I have felt emotionally wrecked. My father was a hugely loving, passionate, funny, intelligent, razor-sharp-witted man. We had a bond that tied us so strongly, distance was no barrier to the love we felt and shared, even over thousands of miles. He was brilliant and unyielding, a force to be reckoned with, and many an opposition was weakened in verbal battle. But he was also soft and full of empathy, which made his lifelong commitment to the advancement of human rights all the more logical. There are not enough words to do justice to my father's legal and political legacy, and so it is unsurprising to those of us that know him that he has been honoured so highly in his passing. But more importantly for me and the rest of the family, I hope he knows how much he was loved as well as respected. Because that's what I will remember and honour him for most, an ability to experience and demonstrate love more than anything else. I miss you, Dad, and I will always love you. Thank you for showing me that living fully is not only striving to leave the world in a better place, but fiercely loving your nearest and dearest. That is truly the way to a fulfilled life.
want to recognize the arrival of the Lord Mayor, Honorable Elias Lukwago. You're welcome. We have an interpreter who has been asked to do some interpretations, so please, will you step forward? Honorable Musasizi, thank you. Let us have another microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Joel Martin Masiko Kanyeihamba.
Mwebale mwena amazina baranyeta Joel Masiko Kanyeihamba.
And here with my sister, my elder sister, Sarah Nyakwezi Kanyeihamba.
Kandi ali hano na mnyanya mukuru we ubaleta Sarah Nyakwezi Kanyeihamba.
And you just heard a message on the video from our younger sister, Ruth Katunji Judkins.
Kandi bamara kutera obutumwa ku rugo ndijo mnyanya wabo.
So a lot of people have spoken about our father.
Abantu binji bagamba halishe wabo Kanyeihamba.
And all the achievements and memories they have of him working in the public field.
Kandi nebirungi byona ebiyabasize kukora ali mu nseegi.
We recognize as his family, his immediate family, that he is public property.
Abeka bayikiriza ngo Kanyeihamba abire ajyowa owihanga ryona n'ensi yona habwe emirimo ye eyabire arakora.
And we are immensely proud and privileged for the enormous honor that this nation has granted him.
Kandi barepaka kandi barasima habwo kugira ngo ihanga ryabasa kumuhereza ekitiinisa nk'eki.
So there's not much that I think we can add to explain that public side of his life that others couldn't do better than us.
Tihariho kihango eki barabasa kwongeraho ha mirimo ye eyakolera ihanga kusinga ebyabagambi babanza kugamba bagamba.
But we can try and give you an idea of the private man, the family man.
Konka baza kugezaho babagambire ali Professor Kanyeihamba nka ishebo nalishi omuntu eyindi mirimo yarakora omuka yeye ahiguru yo kukolera ihanga ebi babagambire.
So what I've learned in these last days and weeks, hearing eulogies from others about his public life, it's very much the same.
Ngo ebi yamurebireho omubiro bye byamuheru nebe abandi bagamba byona birenda nko kushana.
At home, in a private family life, Dad liked being right.
Omuka kwabire arabali mukanabo alenda ngo ature ahicire.
Even when he was wrong.
Nobuyoba yarabagwire akabalenda ngo abe ahicire.
More than that, he wanted everybody to have that feeling of being right and doing the right things.
Kandi akabalenda ngo buryo omwe wena omuli harwaju ajiro kutekateka ngo niwahicire.
So he was always looking to teach us either what was right from wrong or how to make sure that we kept on that right side of what was right and wrong.
Ngeno akabaratura alenda ngo abereke ecicire kandi alenda ngo barebe kandi bakore ecicire omuka yabo.
He was also great fun.
Kandi akabali no muntu orabakunda.
He was always making jokes and playing with us as kids and our children as well, his grandchildren.
Kandi akabarakunda kuzana nabo nkabana kandi arabagambira kandi arabakorera nabyo kubashesa no kubashemeza.
He was really interested in us as individuals.
Mbwenu akajyo omutano mnonga omumagara gabo nkabantu.
It didn't matter if you were just a small child running around people's feet. He would go to you.
Nkabana akabaliruka nabo aragamba nabo arazana nabo.
And also with our relatives and our extended family, he extended his love to them as well.
Kandi akabarakunda n'abanyabuzale be neka yabo empango nko kunanagambire nyamwazo.
He sponsored many people at school and in other projects.
Akayamba abantu binji omwishomero na no mu bindi bintu byona ebyentunguka.
And many of our family owe where they are today to that support, both financially and in other ways, with wisdom, advice on the right way to do things.
Kandi bona baliyo omumaka gabo kandi akara habura no kutunga sente nebindi byona.
And still, it seems to surprise us when we see how people loved him back.
Ngeno ti yatangara kureba abantu nabo baba rakunda Kanyeihamba no kubachimwereka erizoba.
Many members of our family helped look after him over many years, worked for him in different projects.
Abantu binji bakamukorera bakora nawe projects nyinji eziyabira rakora kumara obwire bwinji enyumaho.
And throughout he was trying to help develop them, teach them, give them opportunities.
Kandi mujogo mulingo go gukora nawe akabejesa kandi yabereka no kubarabasa kubona imigisha baketungura.
Towards the latter part of his life, he had a lot of support from people at home, such as Asimwe Loi.
Omu bwire bwe bw'amagara genseji akayambwa abantu binji bomuka na mno mnonga obaleta Asimwe Loi. Aryaha, is she here?
Yes, please stand up for
ngugwe ayemerere bamurebe.
Yeah, Asimwe was there through the hardest of times.
Asimwe akamuberaho omubwire bweye bwena obugumire.
She loved him and he loved her.
Kandi Asimwe akaba aramukunda kandi na professor nawe akaramukunda.
And partly that was because they were family, but also it was because of what his character was like.
Echachira chireta no kugira ngo asimwe ko yabira kuzire kandi nemichwe nemitwalize eyabira yine.
And there were many others who did work for him as well over the years, as I've said.
Hamwe n'abandi abariho abandi abatwire nawe muyejo myaka yona nabarabasima.
We've heard a lot about Betty, who's not actually family, but again, she responded to the support and love that he gave her.
Ariho ondijo obareta Betty owabire atajyomwe mukayabo konkana we akabayamba mnonga.
So she was like family.
Ngeno na wakayika yabo mwana wo muka na waryaha yemerere bamurebe. Yereza, you can wave. Okay.
Yes, so I apologize. I think a lot of you are thinking, who's this new person? We haven't seen you around.
Aragira muri kwebuza ngo ogubishu arabagoha kustwire totaramure kumutwire mutaramureba ogwarabagoha.
And there's a lot of pressure and expectation on us to fill these enormous shoes.
Kandi aragira ngo muramuteka mubinji na muno munonga ekikwatirine no kuzamungito zishe nkoko matumbika ya mushaba.
But what we got from our Father is a foundation to help us.
Konka echishe yabakozire ishaka batebekanisiza ekiraze kubayamba okureba ngo bajwara ekito zishe bazikamu.
If we can only do one small part of what he's done for us, I hope we can earn the respect that is due for someone who's attempting to step into his shoes.
Ngo kubo kugira nangwa kimwe chonka ekibakoraho omubiyabira arakora ngo echo kirabasa no kumara okwika mu nkito zishe kurungi.
I also have to apologize on the protocol side. There are lots of people, dignitaries we don't know.
Kandi ngumusasire ebya obukuru bwita bari mu government nibinji yaba tabitebekanize kurungi mutafayo tabimanyirire.
You don't know me, I don't know you, so you'll forgive us breaking that protocol.
Ngu timura mumanya kandi nawe tarabamanya mbwenu mumusasire yaba tabitebekanize kurungi.
But Dad wasn't always one for protocol. He just said what he thought.
Kandi ngwishe ebya protocol akabara bimanya mnonga.
I'm fairly sure by now he would have told me to stop talking. You've talked too long.
Ngu kandi na hati kurariho yobire yamugambire ngo arekera aho ngo yagamba binji akatara kunda abantu baragamba binji.
I'll keep hearing that voice in my mind.
Ngene echo nguchimulimu kugira ngo yabaragamba tashemerire kugamba binji.
I hope the people of our clan, the country and the world will also keep hearing that argumentative but almost always right voice.
Kandi ngo aina masukongo abantu boruganda gwitu gwabagabira n'abantu bona bandi bihangeri balija guma bararangwe bintu babikora byabe bintu bihicire kandi ngo bashiteka bashijire mu mutima kugira ngo orakole kintu oyine kushikora cyahika.
I hand over to my sister.
hati yaza kuhereza myanya nawe agire byagambaho.
My name is Sarah Nyakwezi.
Amazina ge baramweta Sara Nyakwezi.
But from when I was small, my name was Kwezi.
Ngo obu yacajyo mu ishimoto izina rye bakaba baramweta Kwezi.
I was a father's girl, daddy's girl.
Ngo akaba ari omuhara owishe yarakunda munonga kandi nawe aramwikayi munonga.
I loved my father so much
Ngo akaba arakunda ishe munonga.
that when he came home from work,
kuyagarukaga muka araruga murimo,
I would jump into his car
yazaga mu motoka ye,
and say, "Daddy, let's go for a drive."
so agira ati ntwara katuze ati mvugamu.
And as Mum went in to go in the car, I would push her out.
And kuyazaga omotoka agira we ayihamu.
And say, "No, just you and me, Daddy."
Sorry?
I would say, "Just you and me, Daddy."
Ngu yabaga talenda umuntu wena alenda ngu abalimu nishekusha.
So people may look at me as a nearly old lady. I've never married and I don't have any children.
Ngu murasa kumureba akuzire nkonkata kashwegwagaho kandi tayina n'umwana wena.
And they wonder why.
Kandi murasa kwebuza habwenshi.
I never met any man with the character like my father.
Ngu echatumire yanga abashija ngu takabonaga omushija murungi nkishe.
What I want to say about him, there are two things.
Ngenu ngwalenda kumugambaho ebintu bibiri.
The first is that he's a Michiga.
Echo kubanza ishe no muchiga, akaryo muchiga.
Not just in body but in soul.
Kutari kugira ngo no muchiga nkokora mureba konka mutima obuchiga bwe buryo bwa mutima.
So wherever he is now in heaven,
ngenu ngo harokwe mwiguru,
he is still a Michiga.
Aryo muchiga ayindo kwikiriza ngo ndahiyaza nabwe no muchiga.
And the second thing is we were confused as to why he wouldn't be buried in Kigezi.
Ekyakabiri ngo bakagiro kwebuza habwenshi batamuzika owitu Kigezi museru ye ya muzirante mpungu ayazaligwe.
I understand now it is because he isn't just a child of Kigezi or Bachiga, he is bigger than that.
Ngu konkati ya chetegerize ngu Profesa Kanyeihamba akaba atari mutabani w'abachiga chonka ngu konka kayo hanguhire okusingana haryecho ali no wihanga ryona.
He is also in Uganda by adoption.
Ngu akabali omuganda by ngu kuyijire Kampala yaba mutabani w'abaganda habwo kugira ngo akatura kuno.
He wasn't just a child of Kigezi.
Akaba atari munyakigezi chonka.
He was a child that belongs to the whole of Uganda.
Ngu akabali owa Uganda yona. Ngene nganda zona bachiga n'abandi bona akabali mutabani wabo.
And that continues now in the next world.
Kandi echo kirakwereka habwenshi twaza kumuzika hanuya. Mwebale mnonga.
I'd like to just add one thing.
Joweru alenda kugitaho chimwe chonka.
We've had so many generous contributions.
Sorry?
We've had many
abantu binji mubatwererire mujyo kubakwasa omujyo kushendechereza ishe wabo.
And in truth, I've struggled to remember who some of them are from. Envelopes with no name, stuffed with money, put into my hand.
Ngu enyinji taramanya nayizirugire agwo kwararebe basa kusha erime sente hatariho n'ekihandikireho.
So I'll take the easy way out and say, anyone who's given us contributions, we really thank you. It's so generous.
Ngumwenu nabwo echo kutwaliza hamwe mwena ababatwererire arabebaza mnonga.
Thank you very much.
Mwebale mnonga.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, the family of Justice Kanyeihamba. Thank you for allowing us share in celebrating his life with you. We also would like to assure you that we share in this loss. This loss is felt within the country and beyond. May God continue to comfort you. And before we go into the next segment of speeches, I would like to acknowledge receipt of written condolence messages from the following. We acknowledge receipt of condolence message from His Grace, the Archbishop of Kampala, Paul Semogerere, who also quoted for us Romans 14:8. We thank Kampala Archdiocese. We also received a written condolence message from the Attorney General's Chambers, signed by the Attorney General, Chiriowa Kiwanuka, and who indicated that the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has made a contribution of Uganda shillings 5 million towards the burial expenses. We thank the Attorney General's Chambers. We also received condolence message from Friends of Justice Kanyeihamba from the United States. This is from Joanne and Justice Francis M. Sekandi, and the message will be handed over to the family. In the interest of time, we shall not be able to read these messages. We also received a condolence message from ALP Advocates, and the team leader, Francis Gimara, Senior Counsel, is here. They have also made a contribution of 300,000 shillings towards support for the funeral expenses. Thank you, ALP, for your generosity. We received a written condolence message from Kabale University, signed by Addison Kakuru, Chairperson, Kabale University Council, and they made a contribution of 2 million shillings towards the burial expenses. We thank you very much, Kabale University, for your generosity. We also acknowledge receipt of a written condolence message from Uganda Golf Club, and I believe they are here. And this message was signed by Charles Kareba, Chairperson, Board of Trustees, Uganda Golf Club. Thank you so much. This will be handed over to the family. We acknowledge receipt of wreath from Ministry of Public Service and from Ministry of Public Service. The wind is not giving me any peace, but we shall manage. We received a wreath from Ebony Coates family. Thank you so very much for your thoughtfulness to the family of Justice Kanyeihamba. And now it's my honor to invite the Honorable the Chief Justice to come and make his remarks, after which he will invite the representative of government, Honorable Chris Baryomuzi, to deliver the message from government. Thank you. As the Chief Justice makes his way here, we also acknowledge receipt of condolence message from State House, signed by Brigadier Henry Isoke, Head State House Anti-Corruption Unit. Thank you very much.
Slightly up.
the Honorable Minister of Information, representing His Excellency the President, Honorable Ministers here present, my Lords of the Courts of Judicature, other judicial officers, political leaders who are here present, the family of Justice Kanyeihamba, my Lord Bishops and members of the clergy, fellow mourners. I have had to speak for Justice Kanyeihamba, this being the third time. I spoke when we honored him. I spoke yesterday from my heart, and today I am speaking again. In all those occasions, I've spoken as head of the Judiciary of Uganda. We as the Judiciary extend our boundless appreciation to all of you for condoling with us since Justice Kanyeihamba was part of our judiciary family, for the unfortunate loss of our mentor and legal icon, Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. A lot has been said about the deceased, and rightfully so. Justice Kanyehamba's illustrious career as a teacher, politician, and judge, as well as his astounding academic contributions, have significantly shaped the nation's legal landscape and jurisprudence. The judiciary is proud of him and will forever remember him. Justice Kanyeihamba joined the judiciary right at the apex, the top court, as a justice of the Supreme Court, and served till his retirement in the year 2009. Before his appointment to the Supreme Court in 1997, he was in academia. Nonetheless, his grasp of the law and the art of judgment writing were very strong and commendable. He is well known for his unwavering dedication to enforcing the law, his deep intelligence, and his fearless independence. In addition to serving on the bench, Justice Kanyeihamba was a distinguished scholar and prolific writer whose writings served as a source of inspiration and guidance for innumerable scholars and legal professionals in Uganda and the world over. He gained respect and recognition on a national and worldwide level for his contributions to the legal and academic domains. He was one of the pioneer judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, pioneer president of the African chapter of the International Association of Refugee Law Judges, member of the International Criminal Court Bar Council, and a barrister of the Supreme Court of England and Wales. He taught law in a number of institutions, including Makerere University, Uganda Christian University, the University of Wales, Lancaster Polytechnic, now Coventry University, University of Warwick, Portsmouth University, and Uganda Law School in Samizi, which later became the Law Development Center, among others. He also served as Chancellor of Kampala International University from June 2003 to April 2011, and pioneer Chancellor of Kabale University 2002 to 2015. Through this calling, the people that have been impacted by this great professor are innumerable, and I have no doubt that his legacy will survive for generations. In the political sphere, Honorable Justice Professor G.W. Kanyeihamba served as a member of parliament, a minister, and attorney general, and was very instrumental in the drafting of the 1990 Constitution, which has stood the test of time. I spoke at length yesterday about this. His steadfast integrity, moral leadership, and extraordinary bravery in upholding the independence of the judiciary and the sanctity of the Constitution defines Justice Kanyeihamb's legacy. I wish to thank the family members of the late Professor Kanyeihamba for assisting the professor in all possible ways to accomplish all the milestones that have been enumerated in this short life that he has lived. We also appreciate you in a special way for standing the stress of more than 2 weeks funeral activities. It is quite draining, but you have braved the task. May the good Lord bless you and strengthen you in this sacrifice and in this difficult time. In a special way, we also wish to thank the government of Uganda for according our fallen comrade an official send-off. The chairperson and members of the National Organizing Committee and the church leadership who have made this experience a reality. We thank you so much. As the judiciary family, we offer our deepest sympathies to the family and friends of the late Justice Kanyeihamba, His Excellency the President, the entire government of Uganda, and all who have been impacted by his life and work. May Honorable Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba soul rest in eternal peace with the Lord. Signed by the Chief Justice of Uganda. Thank you. I apologize, I'm not used to inviting, so it's one of Honorable Minister representing the President of Uganda. I have the singular honor of inviting you to speak to the people here assembled. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my Lord Chief Justice. The other name of the Chief Justice is Chigamoi, which means he's a Muchiga. And we have been making jokes that he's a Muchiga who went to Acholi. The Chief Justice of Uganda, my lords, the bishops, and your grace, the retired Archbishop, my friend, Stanley Ntagari, the honorable ministers who are present, who include the area member of parliament for Rwanda East, where Professor Wilson Kanyeihamba hails from, the former prime ministers present here. Permit me also to recognize the leaders from the opposition parties. We had Honorable Chaguranyi, the president of NUP, and the Honorable Senyonyi, the leader of opposition in the parliament. We have the Lord Mayor, Elias Lukwago, and let me also recognize the members of parliament present, including the members of parliament of this area. And in the interest of time, permit me to acknowledge all of you, the distinguished mourners present here. My name is Chris Bariomunsi. I am the minister in charge of ICT and the national guidance in the government of Uganda, and the member of parliament for Chinchizi East in Kanungu district. And also for those of you who belong to the Yellow Party, I am the national vice chairperson for NRM for Western Uganda. I was requested by His Excellency the President to represent him, and I began yesterday in the church
where I represented the president and read his message and gave his condolence contribution. And again, I am here to perform the same function of representing HE, the president, whom, as earlier speakers have noted, is a very close friend of Professor Kanyeihamba. Permit me, before I read the message of the president, to make just a brief comment, and allow me to make it in Ruchiga for the sake of the people from Nyamasizi and the Bachiga and the Banyachigezi who are here, and then I will shortly read the message of the president. Professor Kanyeihamba, mwahulira ebi tumugambireho kwiha ruhanga ya mweta, kandi twena nitwikiriza ngo yaba ryo musheija w'amani, yitwa Abanyakigezi, yitwa Abakiga, nitwulira kwehulira bw'amagara n'ubwire ubu ruhanga yaheire Professor Kanyeihamba mwene ukatere ruhanga omungaro. Tindi kuzakugarukamo ebibagambe byakozire ahabwo kuba ryagangwa kandi bihandikire n'ekirunje bingi Professor akabyehandikira akwa kali umukugu omukuhandika. Professor Kanyeihamba akazarirwa omucyange cya Kinaba, kandi Kinaba erizoba eryo muri Kanungu omu constituency eyindi kujwekera omu parliament. Namwe nukunajira mu parliament yangambira ati Kinaba ejo ogireberere kurungi aho kwa no mwanya gugumire nko Kanungu hali kuruga Kampala kandi hagumire na waika Kanungu Kinaba na yegumire kandi eri hale. Hariho butwaza yona weshitini samama Mbabazi yabuza abantu ba Kinaba kuda abantu mukije yo muta aho kwa nahantu hagumire. So nitulira twino kwesima kushanga ngo omuntu akazarirwa Kinaba yashoma yaba professor yaranganwa yamanywensi yona kandi yakora bingi ebyo kutangaza. Mbeire nabagambire nyomwe bazo omukanisa Professor Kanyeihamba no Uganda gwanje turi abagabira, kandi mbagambire ngo niwe omugabira wo kubanza kuzo mu parliament ya Uganda kajiri batamu akateisa kafonfozo rujungu, kandi ninyi namukuratire owankuratireho no weshitenisa musasizi MP wa Rwanda East kandi Minister of State wa Finance. Haliyo ndiyo musigazi wa Rubabo na mwetana bosi niwo mugabira wa kana. Mwenu ningambaha ka minister kandi ko mugabira abagabira twafegwa Kanyeihamba niwe yakagamba gata abagabira turi bace atkonga twino mugasho. Mwena abagabira Banyamasizi mwe bare kwija okushendekereza omugabira mukuru kandi yokozire ebintu bingi ebiturukwehuriza. Tukabire ntumugamba ho bingi konka obwire tiburiho konka nyomwe bazo inshoborero mu kanisa ebigambo mu rujungu ebiri kushoborora Kanyeihamba okwaberali omuntu w'amazima atari kuryanguzi owakolire government tasijire munkolera yona emirimo yone yakozire omu government omu buramuzi akakora yoje tarasigeize yibanja ryona tiheine chi government ebirene mubanja akakoraje yahumura kurungi with excellence ntumusima omuntu orugamba amazima ekiyagamba mushana nicyari ugamba mu mukiro yagira ati no najigamba ngo no yaberi yesi ajigamba kweri yesi omuntu uri kugambiraho ekimuri aha mutima ateine kutina ateine okushereka kandi omuntu w'amagezi nk'uko tumumanya ni bingi ebitwokubasa kugamba okushoborora oku Profesa Kanyeihamba abeirali y'omuntu obere nakunda entunguka omuntu ori kushesya obu yabira esimbire okuyekera abantu ba rubanda omukukora ekiragiro kya constitution nibatwasitore kuyagenzera yegwire ekitabo kiyahandikire omukazi yamubuuza ati Profesa bitu bwo yigure ekitabo totugulira omuramba tukanywa omuramba yayanga ati nija hano kugura omuramba nija kubereka ngu omukiga nabasakurwa kuno mu rubanda ashome nabahandika ebitabo babikozese kushomesa omuri za university nco nayigura ekitabo kinahandikire akaba nayenda ngo abakiga n'abantu bona babase kugunjuka bashome twena tubase okubaje yayanga kugura omuramba n'amagwa yagira ati nyo ninyenda ngo mushome mubeka Profesa Kanyeihamba nico yabira yekolera ekitabo ebitabo byahandikire bari kukozesa omu university nco warebere ko yabire MP akaza ishomero lya Nyaruhanga yashanga abana bali ba day scholars yayombekaho hostel Kanyeihamba hostel na atatwire najigamba mwena kwakore ibintu bingi munonga ntwenda okumusima munonga so nitumusima Ruhanga wamuteyiro munsi kandi akamukozesa ebintu yamani nobo yagenda yasigaho abana yasigaho abanywani tujya kuguma tumwijuka kandi emirimo yakozire tugume tugisime rero twena tujezaho kureba ngo twaba nkawe omukukolera abantu. Just in brief, I was describing where Kanyeihamba hails from. He was born in a village which is in my constituency. I was explaining to the Chief Justice that the name Kanyeihamba has to do with a forest, a bush, and somebody tiny. Kanyeihamba, the parents must have named him as such. Most likely he was a tiny boy who was born in a bushy, forested area of Chinaba. And when I became a member of parliament, he personally told me to look after that area with care. And I can proudly say that the Chinaba where he was born, we have since made it a sub-county, connected the area with a good road, extended electricity to the area. Yes, that's how powerful Kanyeihamba is. Yes, there's a strong wind here. So I was saying, the village where Kanyeihamba was born, and probably it speaks to his name, because the name has to do with a bushy area or a forested area. We have since transformed that area by extending a good road to Chinava. We have extended electricity to that area. We have put a modern health center 3. With my support, we put a community school, a secondary school, which is now grant aided, and many of the people there are able to access decent education. It's now a sub-county, so I'm sure a child who is born there now cannot be called Kanyeihamba, but can be called Kanyatauni. Ati iyo mwanya tukaguhindura ogwakina abatiriri yamba ngo yazarigweyo konka hatiya ne town wazarigweyo hato mwana twamweta Kanyeihamba no mweta Kanyatauni ya Kinaba. And I think because in search of education and the other opportunities, that's why they migrated to a nearby place which currently falls in Rubanda district. And he has excelled in public life and private life, and we shall forever cherish him and remember him. and we are greatly saddened as people of Kigezi, as Bachiga, as Bagabira, that our great elder Kanyeihamba has gone to be with the Lord. So that's the comment I was making in Ruchiga to assure the people of Nyamasizi and the Bachiga here that Kanyeihamba had many friends, as you have seen, and we shall continue to pray for his soul, but also we shall continue to be part of the family, and we send condolences particularly to the family, the wife and the children, and the wider family of Professor Kanyeihamba. Hati mwabachiga munyikirize hati inshome obutumwa obu presidenti ahandikire kandi presidenti abeire yatayayire amaka ga professor yagambire n'omukazi we n'abaana yabayikizeho ebigambo byo kubahumuriza tiyabasa okweyizira lizoba abw'emirimo ya gavumenti konka yandabiramu okubaletera obutumwa bwe kandi ntumusiima aboko bakiyikiriza yagira ngu Professor Kanyeihamba ahabw'emirimo mikuru mihango yakoleire abantu ba Uganda na gavumenti aherezibwe ekitinisa ky'okumuziika kiturikweta ngu ni official burial buri omwe takatunga ekitinisa nk'eki. So nabwekyo ntusiima president ngu omukusiima emirimo yi Professor Kanyeihamba akoleire ihanga akagira ngu tumusiime turi kumushendekereza omu kitinisa kya gavumenti ekyo kiturikweta ngu ni official burial. Kandi niyo mwebaza abere yampeire bahasa ya miliyoni 10 yaherize yowe nk'omuntu omu kwirukangirira family omu kumushendekereza konka ebindi ryo kuziika ko Dr. Rugunda yagambire kushashurira bill y'igwariro n'ebindi yona ebyo gavumenti niyo eri kubishashura. So at this moment permit me to read verbatim the short condolence message by HE the President. Condolence message by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, upon the death of the late Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba, dated 28th July 2025. The family of the late Professor George Kanyeihamba, the clergy, and fellow mourners, condolence message. Once again, on behalf of the government of Uganda, on behalf of the NRM party, and on behalf of all Ugandans, I wish to extend heartfelt condolences to the family of the late Professor George Kanyeihamba. I commiserate with his colleagues in the legal fraternity. He excelled as a lawyer, politician, scholar, and a judge. His writings and landmark rulings over the years are a great treasure to the present and future generations. I salute Professor Wilson Kanyeihamba's contribution during the 1981-86 Bush War, which salvaged Uganda from state collapse. He was part of our external committee that was mobilizing support in the diaspora. Eventually, when the NRA captured power, he served in the government as a minister, and at one time, he represented Rwanda in the Parliament of Uganda. Therefore, we are not only mourning the death of Professor Kanyeihamba, but also celebrating his great legacy, which must be carried forward by his children, grandchildren, and his former students and admirers. May the soul of Professor George Kanyeihamba rest in eternal peace. Signed, YK Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda. Thank you very much. May the soul of Professor Kanyeihamba rest in eternal peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. May the words that we have heard today and over the last few days stay with us. May they inspire us, and may they be heard far and wide. May the legacy of Professor Justice Kanyeihamba live on. And now, this brings us to the end of official eulogies, and shortly thereafter, we shall be handing back to church. But I request that we rise up for anthems. Thank you very much. We may take our seats as we hand over the microphone back to the church, and as we also recognize a wreath from Ambassador Olara Otuna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Musenze Kasim, accountant for Puerto Rico.
Is that maybe at the countryside, but to the capital
for record purposes. The policy of the government right now is to use biometric voter verification. And as I talk, procurement is going on to ensure that there are 2 machines for every polling station. The reason is we tested the batteries and found that given the vagaries of weather and perhaps unforeseen circumstances, the batteries may not last for the entire duration. And we studied that from Ghana. So the Electoral Commission is working on both the hardware and the software to ensure biometric voter verification to deal with the problem of ballot stuffing and multiple voting. That is the update I wish to give. So rest assured, there will be biometric voter verification in the 2026 general elections. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I am not sure if you have answered this question. His question is, we are all aware that we are going to have biometric election. We are going to use the machines for voting. His question was that you promised to bring a law for that.
Madam Speaker, I wish I was a dictator who could issue decrees. This law is right now in cabinet, and that is the only update I can give. When cabinet has finished its role, it will be brought before this House.
Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, in March 2020, there was an amendment of Electoral Commission Act, which was done in this House and allowed the EC to use electronic. What is required in this House? As I've said already, under Section 12, what you may require is only to bring the regulations, not the law. The regulations to the